I'm really pleased to be giving this opening address at the Metadata Australia 2010 conference. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but this is an incredibly important issue and I'd like to wish you all the best for your deliberations over the next couple of days. Metadata in Australia is one of the core issues that we need to address if we're serious about Gov 2.0 and putting information to work on behalf of Australian citizens. It's incredibly important because it provides contextual information for everything we do with information. If we're serious about setting data free, and we all know that the policy intention of this government is to have the default position of information collected on behalf of the public made public unless there are compelling reasons, security, privacy, not to do so. So for example, making sure that we geocode all sorts of information that we collect allows it to be reused and mashed up in different ways. Unless that's done as a matter of course, unless that's in the metadata in an open format, we can't reuse it, mash it up, reappropriate it in a suitable or innovative way. We need to get these settings right because it's a precursor to the next generation of how we innovate with information, with data collected on behalf of citizens by the federal government of this country. For the government, the challenge is one that is quite significant, and now I'm really pleased to report back that the government has provided a very positive response to the Gov 2.0 Task Force report. The government has accepted nearly all of the recommendations, and we're now embarking upon a journey to see those recommendations come through to fruition through a course of both policy and program action. I mentioned the Gov 2.0 Task Force report and the positive response to the recommendations up front because I think it's the best example of a very forward-looking agenda on how this government, the Rudd Labor government, harnesses the power of information that they collect on behalf of taxpayers, of citizens of this country, and how as government agencies and departments they will use that to better serve the needs of our population. It's a combination of issues. There's the social policy side where governments strive to serve better in the work that they do. And then there's the technical side where behind the scenes we need to get the settings right. So the information as it's collected and used and analysed and redeployed in all sorts of different ways is actually presented in a practical way. This is where metadata comes in. Critical things like open standards and interoperability are also important, but if we're not getting the system that helps manage the data right, how can we possibly be expected as a government to organise it in a way that A, means something to the range of professionals within the public service who will use and access that information, and B, and this is a big one for the future, the citizens and businesses that will want access to that data as it's opened up over time and freed up into the public domain for mashing up for all sorts of innovative uses that we as a government probably haven't even envisaged yet. There's been another report that I think is also relevant to the question of metadata and how government organises its information, and that is the Ahead of the Game report, the blueprint for the future of the Australian Public Service. This report by Terry Moran, the Head of Prime Minister and Cabinet, also places a great deal of emphasis on the need for agencies and departments to respond to the challenges of the digital age and look at the sorts of Gov 2.0 applications and services that we ought to be offering citizens. I was pleased to see that the Ahead of the Game report really emphasised some of the quite profound ideas espoused in the Gov 2.0 Task Force report. So we're starting to see, I guess, a building of the wave of energy around where we need to go. And I know you've heard me say this before, but the timing's perfect because we're now embarking on a rollout of the National Broadband Network, which will, in effect, close the digital divide for Australia. And that ushers in a whole new realm of opportunity as governments invest in the information infrastructure in the full and confident knowledge that it won't be creating a further social divide. Another important step that's been taken is the passage of the Freedom of Information and Information Commission bills through Parliament, so they're now an act. Why is this relevant? Well, much of the initiative described in the Gov 2.0 Task Force report relies on an important role of the Information Commissioner. And I think as a starting point, it will be the Information Commissioner, which we know is Professor John McMillan, will have in setting those overarching policies for government on how we ensure that we move forward in an interoperable and open environment when it comes to managing information. So if you haven't set your sights on Professor John McMillan, I urge you to. He's the Information Commissioner designate, and now that the Act passes, I'm sure he's getting about and undertaking his duties in that fantastic new role. I was really pleased to see his appointment, because what we do need in government to support the excellent work of AGIMO and other innovative agencies with respect to information policy is a guiding, overarching oversight from the Information Commissioner on making sure that we're heading in the right direction. The other perspective I have on metadata is, of course, as one of the parliamentary members of the Advisory Council of the National Archive of Australia. And metadata is incredibly important to their core business, as you would imagine. But for me, and having a look at archiving policy, it's incredibly important to preserve the context of information and how it's created. And with information being created in all different types of formats and a growing number of formats all of the time, how we capture this contextualised information which tells us where it was created, what the circumstances were, and anything that is possibly relevant. The answer is in having a solid metadata standard that covers off all of those bases. I was at a meeting recently which reminded me of the importance of metadata. The feedback I got was that the corporate sector, the private sector, were looking for even more specificity and guidance when it came to metadata standards. This put a flag up for me, being familiar with the subject, that we need to be forever mindful that not everyone that works in the field of storing and managing information within an organisation is an expert in metadata. So the professional advice and strong direction that can be provided from professionals such as yourselves will always be gratefully received. For many citizens, the internet is just a wondrous realm, but most of them access it by the use of search engines. And once again, metadata is a key tool in making sure that searches are effective. We all know the better the metadata, the stronger the search results. And on behalf of all Australian citizens, I commend that task to you, because we will all benefit. I will continue to advocate to the government and amongst my peers here in Parliament the importance of metadata and the technical tools that will enable full participation in the digital economy. It's an incredibly important area of policy that we know touches all portfolios. There's a huge job to be done, and I'm really pleased to see things like the Information Commissioner, the positive response to the Gov 2.0 Task Force report start to lay solid foundations towards a much brighter future. Let me conclude by formally opening the Metadata Australia 2010 Sharing Data, Sharing Ideas Conference. It's worth reflecting on the wonderful theme that you've chosen. It really is, if we're talking about Gov 2.0, we're talking about the digital environment in 2010. It is all about sharing. It's about the collaborative platform that we create, and it's about getting the technical tools right to make sure that we can genuinely share information and ideas.